inside every human being, something ancient is waiting. It's in our blood, in our cells. Tiny, living things that once ruled this world long before we did. And maybe, just maybe, they've been waiting for the day they can take it back. A day when evolution doesn't just continue, it revolts. And it all begins in an opera house. The crowd sits in silence as the music swells, and then they burst into flames. Not from bombs or gunfire, but from within. Their own bodies begin rebelling against them. Which, to be fair, is one way to handle the audience singing along during Wicked. This is Parasite Eve, Square's love child of survival horror and role-playing games. A game so good that it is held in the same regard as Silent Hill and Resident Evil, and then vanished, like my sub count. I'm kidding. I know where they went. They watch better content creators. Ones who actually upload consistently. So today we're asking the burning question. Gotta get the pun in early, but why, oh why, is Parasite Eve Abandonware? Hello everyone, I'm Cobalt the Crusader, professional wrestler and part-time archaeologist of forgotten games. And today, we're unearthing a legend, Parasite Eve. It's one of the best survival horror games ever made, and I'm here to find out why it's abandonware, and why it still rules after nearly 3 decades. You know, in the late 90s, Square was untouchable. They weren't just making games, they were crafting events. Every release just stuck the landing. I mean, you could throw a dart and hit an awesome Square game. Hey, I like it. Square's PlayStation 1 catalog just might be the single most impressive lineup on the console. And I mean, really think about it. Games like Final Fantasy VII had just changed the world of RPGs and presentation. Tactics proved they could do strategy, and Xenogears proved they could make you question God, humanity, and give you existential dread. But with robots! And then something happened at Square's headquarters. Someone, somewhere said, "Hey, you ever play Resident Evil? Well, what if it had body horror?" And everyone shat themselves. Enter the subject of today, Parasite Eve, a game that was half survival horror, half JRPG, and unbeknownst to the Western audience, is also a sequel to a Japanese novel from 1995. Yeah, a sequel. Not an adaptation, not a remake. They literally said, let's just continue the story of the horror novel, but nobody reads books anymore, so let's make a video game. Said the guy writing a book. The original book by Hideaki Sena was about a scientist whose wife dies and her cells basically decide, you know what, humanity sucks, screw all of you, I'm evolving anyway. At least that's just kind of what I've gathered from a synopsis. I've never actually read the book myself. It's been on my bucket list for a while. But then it got turned into a live action movie. Never saw that either. I'm good at research, guys, I swear, but I can't read or speak Japanese, so I'm limited to translations. The book has an official translation, but the film does not, so, sorry guys, I'm doing the best I can here. And Square decides to just jump in at some point and says, we'll just make the next chapter, and instead of scientists, we're gonna make the main character a hot, no-nonsense, blonde cop from New York, and she's got mutant mitochondria. Honestly, this should not have worked. I mean, seriously, think about it. An internationally released video game sequel to a Japan-exclusive novel and tries to fuse survival horror with JRPG mechanics? That sounds like ridiculous, patently absurd. Like, toss whoever pitched this into a psych ward for how crazy that is. I mean, there's no way that this would sell, let alone even be good. And yet, Parasite Eve is one of the most beloved games in Square's entire library, even to this day. And think about it. Their PS1 era is considered their renaissance. The fact that this game is held in such high regard shows this cannot be replicated. Never gonna happen again, guys. Directed by Takashi Tokita, the lead designer for Final Fantasy IV and one of my personal favorites, as well as the legendary Chrono Trigger, Parasite Eve brought cinematic storytelling, a fusion of real-time combat, and JRPG mechanics in a way that nobody else had tried. I mean, they were dedicated to making something that was truly unique with this game, and you know what? To this day, there still hasn't been anything like it. Hey, wait your turn. I'll talk about you at the end. Our story begins on Christmas Eve, 1997. You're Aya Brea, a New York Police Department officer with nerves of steel and a suspicious tolerance for scientific horror. And incendiaries, apparently, but she's out on a date at the opera. I don't think it's going very well. But early on into the performance, everyone in the audience just bursts into flames. And not because the show is bad, but because the cells in their bodies are revolting, all at the command of the game's antagonist. This is Eve, the game's villain, and basically what happens when your cells unionize and elect Satan as their leader. Also, yes, her name is Eve, the game starts on Christmas Eve, and it's called Parasite Eve. Oh god, she's terrifying! She's got this wild hair, the red body, and the stinger tail that makes me think of Elvaret from Final Fantasy VIII. The thing gave me nightmares as a kid. I mean, you ever play the demo? Elvaret's pure evil in that thing. From that opening chaos, Parasite Eve hits you with one of the smoothest gameplay blends of its era. It's not turn-based, it's not quite real-time, but it's something in between. You move freely around the battlefield, dodging, positioning, and waiting for your AT bar to fill, and then you unleash your attack or parasite energy. This was weirdly elegant for its time. I mean, you're managing your ammo and movement like survival horror, but then you're dishing out damage like it's Final Fantasy. This is such a unique system, not just for the time, but for all time. It's something that you always have to be aware of, managing your parasite powers, your ammunition inventory, and all with a real-time element to it with turn-based style gameplay. But because it has that real-time element mixed with the survival horror aspects of inventory management, it constantly makes you think, wait, how many bullets do I have left? Did I reload before this fight? Or should I use parasite power for healing or a big burst of damage? Do I risk shooting and having to waste reloading? Is the enemy even within range? Do I risk the stun after using the parasite powers? What do I do here? And because of that complexity and depth, it makes every single battle feel tense. It requires you to think on your feet, be aware of everything you have at your disposal at all times. And the best part is, even though I just explained how it could sound overwhelming, it's actually not. The game gives you so many options without ever overcomplicating the fights. But along with that, enemy encounters are kinda random. You see, they don't really appear on screen, but rather at set points on the screen. So if you know where they are, you can maneuver around them and avoid them completely. But you have to know they're there, and that has an element of randomness to it because you basically have to stumble into them first. Now again, you could avoid all that if you wanted to, but it might be in your best interest to not do that, because fighting battles gives you experience points and loot. It is an RPG after all, so you can customize your weapons and armor with the drops you get from battles, slot in upgrades, trade stats, tweak your loadout. Some items give you bonuses to parasite power, some give you more ammo for your guns, and there are different types of guns. There's a lot going on here. And again, this does sound complex, but it's really not. It's basically just finding a loadout that's more comfortable for you and your playstyle. It's crunchy, it's satisfying, and just complex enough to make every choice you make mean something. Now, me personally, I tend to stick to rifles and handguns. I mean, submachine guns are cool, and rocket launchers are beastly, but I always preferred short, controlled bursts of rounds in my survival horror games anyway, so this just suits my playstyle more. Now, I'm not gonna walk through the entire story, because this is one of those must-play games, and I'm going to strongly encourage every single person out there to play this game, even if you have just a slight bit of interest in it, because seriously, it's one of the best Square's ever done, and one of the best survival horror games ever made. You owe it to yourself to play it at least once. And if you already have played it, you know exactly why it's special. And it's also why I would be doing it a disservice if I explained the whole plot for you, because I really, really do think you should just go and play it. Seriously, just find some way to play it. I mean it. Although, just because I'm not gonna spoil the story for you doesn't mean I can't, elaborate a bit on why exactly it's really, really, really good. But let's start with the first thing, and probably the most important element in any horror game ever, the atmosphere. Parasite Eve nails that. It is cold, clinical, human, mutant. It's all of the above, and it oozes personality and just the right level of atmosphere. I'm losing words. Because it just does it right. I mean, just look at this. Every environment just feels like a snapshot of late 90s New York. Dirty alleys, echoing subway tunnels, quiet offices haunted by the weight of something alive just beneath the surface. And honestly, a lot of the mood and atmosphere can be attributed to the masterful soundtrack by Yoko Shimomura, who is the same composer that gave us Kingdom Hearts and Street Fighter 2. But here, she trades heroism for haunting. Her score sounds like a science experiment unraveling. Pianos that ache, strings that scream, and choirs that feel half divine and half diseased. This soundtrack is just pulse with a combination of horror and beauty, and you feel every note in your spine. This is truly one of the most legendary soundtracks to any survival horror game ever. If you don't play the game, you really should play the game. Seriously, go play the game. Like right now, go play the game right now. You should at least check out the soundtrack, because that's on YouTube. You got no excuse. Go listen to it. This is kind of sort of the same environment that made Silent Hill's music so unforgettable and amazing. Now, there's no record of Akira Yamaoka ever citing Parasite Eve as an influence, but honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if he was at least somewhat inspired by it, because the DNA is there. Those industrial beats, the eerie vocal textures, the way both composers just use silence and rhythm to make you uncomfortable, but also just compelled to listen to more? Seriously, just listen to this comparison. Now, I'm not the first person to notice the similarities there, but what I'm trying to say is this. If you love Silent Hill's music, and chances are you do, because you should, then Parasite Eve's soundtrack will definitely scratch that same itch. Also, visually, the game is gorgeous. You know, for the time. Look, it's PlayStation 1, okay? We all know what these games look like today. But look, it looks good for the era, all right? But Square was pushing the PS1 to its limit at every opportunity they got. The way they use lighting, camera angles, and animation to feel more cinematic before that, word got run into the ground. And you might laugh at the character models today, but this was cutting edge at the time. Plus, the pre-rendered backgrounds are still gorgeous. The CGI animated cutscenes are still pretty solid, and Square's always been great at those. So if you judge it by its contemporaries at the time, Parasite Eve can hang with the best of them, and even surpass most of them. I don't really have a lot to say about the graphics otherwise. I mean, what do you say other than, this game's pretty? Especially if you're like me and you're not really a graphics guy. I mean, I still play games on the PS1 and with characters who have the physiognomy of anime Popeye, so what do I know about graphics? Game looks good to me. I think Resident Evil and Parasite Eve are often compared because they both deal with a few similar things. I mean, Resident Evil, or as it's known in Japan, Biohazard, deals with chemicals, waking the dead, and other biohazardous shenanigans. Parasite Eve does a lot of the same thing, but in a different route. See, Resident Evil likes to focus on infections, like a viral infection. Before Las Plagas in Resident Evil 4, people turning to zombies from viral outbreaks, whereas Parasite Eve focuses on parasites and internal evolution of your mitochondria. But look, viruses and parasites are similar, but they're not the same thing, but they do have, similar functions. But without getting into a lesson in microbiology, I think how they work is a major distinguishing point between the two. You see, Resident Evil's infections are viral, as in disease, with a few mutations here and there due to the nature of the T-virus. Most larger creatures, like the Hunter or Tyrant, are biological weapons created intentionally. Parasite Eve is more about the evolution. Like, what if the body creates an evolutionary component that accelerates rapidly? Mitochondria is not a parasite, yet the rapid onset evolution treats it like one. So it's not about becoming infected with a foreign-born virus, it's about something changing what's inside you, and whether you can still call yourself human when your body's not entirely yours anymore. So here's what I gathered from it. And this is what makes the concept of Parasite Eve scary to me, other than the immolation of cells part, I mean. This is just my interpretation, so I could be wrong, but it's kind of what freaks me out about it. It's like John Carpenter's The Thing, except you may never lose consciousness. You stay awake through every second of it. Every cell dividing, every nerve twisting, every instinct screaming that something inside you doesn't belong. You can feel it, watching you from beneath your own skin, waiting for the right moment to surface. You fight it, not with fists or bullets, but with sheer willpower, clinging to the hope that whatever's still you might be strong enough to keep it at bay. But the question gnaws at you. When that thing finally manifests, what's left? Is it still you moving the body, or just the echo of what you used to be? If the mitochondria is a parasite and learns your thoughts, your memories, your voice, does it become you, or did you become it? Did you even notice that you stopped being able to tell the difference? That's what makes Parasite Eve so unsettling. It's not just monsters and mutations, it's the horror of awareness. Being fully conscious while something ancient and biological quietly rewrites what you are, one cell at a time. Or maybe it's something worse. Maybe it's replaced you, warping your body into something completely unrecognizable. And now you're the parasite inside, screaming to get out. So, I guess here's the part where we talk about, hey, if Parasite Eve is such a masterpiece, if this blend of horror, art, and science fiction that remains a timeless classic with amazing gameplay that still holds up today, why can't you play it anywhere officially today? Why did one of Square's most daring and successful experiments just disappear? Well, the short answer is copyright, and the long answer is business. You see, Square owns Aya Brea, the character, the code, all that, but they don't own the name Parasite Eve, because the original concept, the Biological Horror Foundation, that still belongs to author Hideaki Sena. And that makes things messy. Because of that, if Square wants to do, well, anything new with it, a remake, re-release, or remaster, they've basically got to go back to the negotiating tables, which is money, contracts, lawyers, and means it's not happening unless a business deal can be reached that suits all parties. Or they just drop the recognizable name Parasite Eve, which they did once. But personally, I'm an any money is better than no money kind of guy, and right now they're both sitting on no money, but it could be a bit more complicated than that. Look, there are sequels to Parasite Eve. There's Parasite Eve 2 in 1999, and I just mentioned Third Birthday a second ago, which was released years later on the PSP, but those are topics for another day because I don't feel like getting into that right now. But since then, well, nothing. No remaster, no PSN release, no Steam port, just silence. And that's how you end up here, with Parasite Eve as Abandonware. You can't buy it directly from the manufacturer, can't stream it from any online service. The only way to experience it today is through third-party sellers or yo-ho, a pirate's life I can't condone publicly. But this is such a shame. This isn't some forgotten relic. This is Squaresoft at their creative peak. The years of Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, Tactics, Chrono Cross, Bushido Blade, Xenogears, Front Mission, Brave Fencer Musashi, Saga Frontier, and so many great games. You see, this is what happens when the king of JRPGs decided to take a detour through body horror and accidentally created something timeless, and you can't buy it from him anymore? I mean, even if Square never touched Parasite Eve again, you can still see its fingerprints all over just about any genre somewhere here and there. I did mention that Parasite Eve has never really been replicated, and to an extent that's true, but you can feel the DNA in a game called Vagrant Story's combat system, and Resident Evil's narrative structure, and plus the parasites in Resident Evil 4 and stuff, and even some of the psychological unease in Silent Hill 2. It proved that, well, horror can be more than just, tank controls running back and forth with a bunch of puzzles. It can be intimate, introspective, philosophical, and involve leveling up in a non-clunky fashion. I know that a lot of games have incorporated body horror into themselves, like years after Parasite Eve and stuff, but I don't think any game has quite gotten it just as well as Parasite Eve has. And it's not just the classics that carry Parasite Eve's DNA. I mean, today, you can still feel the hunger for it. People miss this kind of horror. That perfect balance between beauty, biology, sci-fi, soul, and between RPG and survival horror. Yeah, case in point, Parasite Mutant. Now, I did not time this at all because of Parasite Mutant's, announcement trailer and stuff. In fact, I actually announced on my community page before Parasite Mutant was, ever shown that I was going to be doing Parasite Eve. So the fact this happened is purely coincidental, but I'd be remiss if I didn't bring it up anyway. But Parasite Mutant is an upcoming indie project that looks like the spiritual successor to Parasite Eve that fans have been begging for, and it's clearly built by people who looked at Square Enix's silence and said,
"Then I'll do it myself. I'll do it myself."
With that, at the time of this recording anyway, Parasite Mutant is not out yet, just recently announced. But the moment the trailer hit, longtime fans felt it, and we all talked about the same thing. Feels good to be back. Even if the game sucks, it just shows that we miss Parasite Eve. That same mix of awe and unease, the creeping question of what it means to evolve, and I love seeing it. It just proves that Parasite Eve isn't dead. It just mutated. So whether or not Square ever revives Parasite Eve and makes those business deals that we want, it might not even matter. Because the game itself, what it was, still holds up after all these years. It's haunting, human, and proof that you don't need a bunch of endless sequels to stay alive. And we should never, ever forget its short, yet incredibly important lifespan in survival horror. It deserves to be held in the same conversation as Resident Evil, Silent Hill, Dino Crisis, and Alone in the Dark. And it definitely does not deserve to be Abandonware. So come on, Square! Work out a deal already! People need to play this game somehow! I'm Cobalt the Crusader, and this was Parasite Eve, a masterpiece of horror and role-playing, and one of the greatest games you can't officially play anymore. I'll see you all in the next adventure into Abandonware.